When he got there, the director handed him a sealed envelope. He tore it open with trembling hands. His eyes darted across the page. The word blurred for a moment before settling. Probability of paternity 99.9%. His breath caught. His knees weakened. He sank into a chair, the paper shaking in his grip. The afternoon sun hung high above Ikeja, its rays burning through the crowded streets and bouncing off rooftops made of rusting zinc. Children in the blue and white uniforms poured out of schools, their chatter mixing with the honking of yellow buses and the cries of hawkers selling roasted groundnuts, cold sachet water and meat pies. Among the river of school children making their way home were three siblings who walked side by side, their laughter standing out against the noise of Lagos. They were not ordinary siblings. They were triplets, 12 years old, born on the same day, but each carrying a different spark of personality. David, the eldest by a few minutes, was calm and thoughtful. He wore his glasses proudly, loved books, and often tried to act like a small adult, keeping his brother and sister in line. Daniel, in the middle, was restless and daring, always the first to ask questions, chase after adventure, and sometimes get into trouble. Finally, there was Danielle, their sister, the only girl among the three, gentle yet sharp-minded, often the peacemaker between her two brothers when arguments broke out. The triplets had grown up in a small rented flat with their mother, Grace, who worked as a nurse. Life was not easy. Their two-bedroom apartment in Ikeja was clean but modest, the rent sometimes overdue, and meals carefully planned to stretch every naira. Still, Grace gave her children love that money could never buy. They adored her and respected her word. She, in turn, taught them values that had nothing to do with wealth: honesty, kindness, respect for others, and hard work. On this particular afternoon, Grace had closed early from the clinic and decided to walk home with her children. The road they took was noisy, lined with street vendors selling second-hand clothes, mobile phone accessories, and fried snacks. Motorcycle riders zoomed past dangerously, and everyone shouted to be heard above the commotion. Grace carried a bag of groceries, balancing it carefully as she guided the triplets across a busy intersection where the traffic lights had stopped working. "Hold my hands," she instructed, stretching her left arm to Daniel and her right arm to Danielle, while David walked close beside her. Together they dashed across the road when the cars paused, their shoes splashing through small puddles left by the rain the night before. As they reached the other side, Danielle suddenly slowed down. Something brown lay partly hidden near the gutter, right by the dusty curb where people often threw wrappers and bottles. She frowned and pointed. "Mommy, look! What's that?" Daniel, always curious, ran ahead and bent down. He picked it up and held it up for everyone to see. It was a leather wallet, dark brown, worn but still looking expensive. The stitching was neat, and the leather was soft in his hands. He shook it lightly, hearing the faint rustle of papers inside. His eyes widened. "It's a wallet!" he exclaimed. David immediately adjusted his glasses and leaned closer, his serious face tightening with responsibility. "Be careful, Daniel. Don't open it on the road. Someone may think you are stealing." Grace, noticing her children huddled around something, came closer. "What do you have there?" she asked. Daniel, unable to hold back his excitement, handed it to her. "We found it here, Mom. Somebody dropped it." Grace's eyes lifted in surprise. She turned the wallet over in her hands. The material was soft, clearly not the type of wallet ordinary people in their area carried. She gently unzipped the side and opened it. Inside, her eyes landed on several items: crisp naira notes neatly folded, a few credit cards, an identification card tucked softly behind a transparent cover. The children leaned closer, eager to see. Grace pulled out the ID card and read the name softly: Mr. Chukwuebuka Maduka. The children repeated the name together. Maduka. Grace's eyes widened slightly. She had heard the name before. He was not just any man. He was a known billionaire, often mentioned in newspapers and business magazines. His companies dealt in construction, oil and real estate. He was also a philanthropist, donating to hospitals and schools. People described him as powerful, wealthy and respected. Her heart skipped. Could it be that the wallet in her hand truly belonged to that Maduka? She checked further and pulled out a business card. Printed in a bold letters was Mr. C. Maduka, CEO, Maduka Group Holdings. Below was a fancy address in Ikeja GRA, the government reserved area, famous for its mansions and tree-lined streets. Grace inhaled sharply. The address was not far, but it was a world away from their modest neighborhood. The contrast between their small flat and the billionaire's mansion was like night and day. Wow, David whispered, staring at the address. The man is very rich, oh. Daniel's eyes shone. Maybe there's a lot of money inside. He peeked hopefully, but David elbowed him. Don't say that, David scolded. It doesn't matter how much is inside. It's not ours. Grace gave her eldest son an approving look. That is right. We must return it. But before she could say more, Daniel leaned in again. Mom, maybe we should just take the money for food. Look at our shoes. Mine is already tearing. You work so hard. And this man is a billionaire. He won't even notice. Daniel gasped. Daniel, that's wrong. What if he's looking for it? What if this wallet is important to him? Daniel pouted. I was only saying. Grace placed a firm hand on his shoulder. Listen, my son. We don't keep what is not ours. We survive on honesty. Even if we don't have much, we have dignity. One day, your good character will bring you blessings more than money. The triplets fell silent. They trusted their mother's words. She had always told them that riches earned the wrong way never last. Slowly, Daniel nodded, accepting her guidance. Danielle touched the wallet gently and looked at her mother. Mommy, we should take it back to him right now. He must be worried. Yes, David agreed, pushing his glasses up his nose. He could be searching for it everywhere. His driver might be checking the roads already. Grace looked at her three children, different personalities, but united by the values she had planted in them. She smiled proudly, though her heart was heavy with exhaustion from her shift. She knew their lives could change if they kept even a fraction of the money in the wallet. But her children were right. Honesty mattered more than wealth. She zipped the wallet shut, her mind racing. Mr. Maduka's mansion was not too far by bus or tricycle. It would take them maybe half an hour. She weighed her option. Should they rest first and go later, or go immediately? The thought of such an important man losing his wallet made her uneasy. He could have bank cards, keys or documents inside that were worth far more than the cash. She straightened her back and nodded firmly. You are right. We cannot delay. We will return it now. The triplets' eyes lit up with determination. They stood taller, feeling proud of the decision. Danielle smiled. Good, let's go, Mom. Daniel grinned, his earlier greed forgotten, replaced with excitement. Yes, we are going to a mansion. David adjusted his glasses again, pretending to be serious but secretly just as thrilled. Let's hurry before it gets dark. Grace looked at them, her chest swelling with pride. These were her children, not by blood, though they didn't know that yet, but by love, by choice, by everything that mattered. And now, together, they were about to step into a journey that would change all their lives forever. With the wallet safely in their hands, Grace led her triplets towards the nearest road where they could find a tricycle. The bustling noise of Ikeja carried on around them, unaware that something extraordinary was about to unfold from the simplest of action. Three children choosing honesty over temptation. And that was how it all began, with a wallet lying forgotten by the roadside, and a family whose destiny was about to collide with that of a billionaire. The keke napep rattled noisily down the wide streets of Ikeja GRA, the engine grinning as though it had seen better days. Grace sat in front side beside the driver, clutching the brown wallet tightly against her chest. Beside her, the triplets squeezed together on the narrow back seat, their voices tumbling over. David peered out the small opening, his glasses glinting under the late afternoon sun. He couldn't believe the difference between these streets and their own crowded neighborhood. Here, the air seemed cleaner, and the sidewalks were wide, lined with well-trimmed trees. Big houses with towering gates stood back from the road, some with lawns so green they looked like carpets. He whispered, "This place doesn't even feel like Lagos." Daniel pressed his face close to the glass, his nose almost touching it. "See that one," he shouted, pointing at a cream-colored mansion with pillars at the entrance. "It looks like something from a movie." Danielle giggled and shook her head. "Everything here looks like a movie, Daniel. Look at the flowers. They even have gardeners." The keke driver, an elderly man with graying stubble, chuckled as he overheard. "Na GRA be dis," he said proudly, steering the tricycle carefully. "Dis one na for big men oo. You no go see any small small shop here. Only oga people dey live for here." Grace forced a smile, though her heart was racing. It had been years since she set foot in Ikeja GRA. The beauty of the neighborhood brought memories she had worked hard to bury. She kept her eyes forward, willing herself not to think of the hospital, not to think of that night, not to think of the man whose name was on the ID card. The tricycle slowed and pulled up in front of a tall black gate with golden patterns on it. On one side of the gate was a polished nameplate, number 16 GRA Avenue. Grace recognized the address from the business card she had seen in the wallet. Her breath caught. This is it. She paged the driver quickly, her hands trembling slightly, and stepped out. The children scrambled out after her, their school shoes crunching against the clean pavement. They craned their necks to look at the gate, their mouths slightly open in awe. "Is this really his house, Mom?" Danielle whispered. "Yes," Grace answered softly. Her voice was steady, but her stomach churned with unease. Daniel bounced on his toes. "It's bigger than 10 schools joined together." David adjusted his glasses, his tone practical. "Let's not waste time. We have to give him his wallet before it gets too late." Grace approached the gate and pressed the shiny bell. A melodic chime rang from somewhere inside. The children huddled close beside her, excitement bubbling beneath their nervousness. After a moment, a small hatch slid open and a security guard peered out. "Yes?" he asked, his deep voice curious. His eyes flickered from Grace to the children, then down to the wallet in her hand. "Good afternoon," Grace said politely. "My children and I found this wallet on the road. The ID inside says it belongs to Mr. Maduka. We came to return it." She held the wallet up for him to see. The guard's stern expression shifted. He blinked in surprise and gave a short nod. "Wait," he said, closing the hatch. They waited in silence, the children fidgeting. Grace felt sweat trickle down her back despite the shaded street. A part of her wished she had just dropped the wallet at the nearest police station. But no, This was the right thing to do. She tightened her grip on the wallet. After a few minutes, the heavy gate began to swing open. The same guard stepped out, now smiling. Oga has been looking for that wallet since morning. Please come in. The triplets exchanged excited looks as they followed Grace inside. The compound was like nothing they had ever seen. A fountain sprayed water into the air in the middle of a wide driveway. Bright flowers climbed the walls, and the grass was cut so neatly it looked like velvet. Parked to the side was a black SUV that gleamed like glass. Daniel whispered, "This place is paradise." "Shh," David cautioned. The main house stood tall and white, with wide windows and a balcony above. As they approached, the front doors opened and a man stepped out. He was tall and broad-shouldered, dressed in a pale blue shirt and dark trousers. His stride was firm, his presence commanding yet calm. His beard was neatly trimmed with streak of grey, and his eyes, sharp and intelligent, scanned the group approaching him. Grace froze. It was him. Even after 12 years, she recognized him instantly. Chukwuebuka Maduka. The man whose wife she had tried to comfort on the hospital bed. The man whose cry of despair had echoed through the corridors when the doctor told him his wife was gone. The man who never knew his babies had lived. Her knees almost buckled, but she forced herself to keep walking. The children pressed close to her sides. "Good afternoon, sir," she said, lowering her gaze respectfully. The triplets chimed in. "Good afternoon, sir." Mr. Maduka's eyes softened. "Good afternoon. I hear you have something of mine." Grace stepped forward and held out the wallet with both hands. "Yes, sir. We found this by the roadside. Your ID was inside." Maduka took the wallet, flipped it open, and checked quickly. Relief washed over his face. Yes, this is mine. Thank you so much." He looked down at the children, really seeing them now. His breath caught. The pairs of young eyes stared back at him. 3 faces, so similar yet distinct. His heart skipped. Triplets? For a moment, his mind reeled. The memories hit him hard. The delivery, the doctor's words, the tiny newborns he never held. He blinked rapidly, trying to steady himself. "What are your names?" he asked quietly. "I'm David," said the boy with the glasses, standing tall. "I'm Daniel," the second boy added quickly, grinning. "I'm Danielle," the girl said softly, clutching her school bag. Maduka's hand trembled slightly as he returned the wallet to his pocket. "Triplets," he murmured. Grace noticed the way his voice cracked, and her chest tightened painfully. Did he already suspect? Did he see what she had tried to hide all these years? He cleared his throat and forced a smile. "You did a very good thing today. Honesty is rare. I would like to thank you properly. Please come inside, just for a few minutes." The children's eyes lit up. Grace hesitated, but the warmth in his tone made it impossible to refuse. She nodded. "Thank you, sir." Inside, the mansion was like another world. The living room was wide, with polished marble floors and soft couches arranged neatly. A chandelier sparkled overhead, and paintings decorated the cream-colored walls. Cool air from the air conditioner washed over them, a welcome relief from the humid outdoors. A maid appeared silently and set down glasses of juice for the children and iced tea for Grace. They sipped nervously, still wide-eyed at their surroundings. As Grace raised her eyes, they landed on a large portrait hanging above the fireplace. Her breath caught. It was a family picture. A younger Mr. Maduka stood proudly beside a beautiful woman in a hospital gown, her face glowing with exhaustion and joy. In her arms, she held a tiny baby wrapped in a white blanket. At Maduka's side, another nurse held a second newborn. A third infant rested in a small bassinet at their feet. Grace's blood ran cold. She remembered that day. She had been in that very room, standing behind the door as the picture was taken. She remembered the cries, the chaos, the grief that followed. Her hands trembled on the glass of iced tea. "Mommy, look," Daniel whispered, pointing at the portrait. "Triplets, just like us." Daniel leaned closer, excitement in his voice. "They even look our age." David adjusted his glasses and frowned in curiosity. Strange coincidence. Grace forced a smile that did not reach her eyes. Her chest tightened, her heart pounding so hard she thought the others might hear it. She quickly looked away, afraid her expression would give her away. Because deep inside, she knew the truth. Those babies in the portrait, the ones in the arms of Maduka and his late wife, were the same three children now sitting on the billionaire's couch, sipping juice innocently. And though her children admired the painting with innocent wonder, Grace trembled inside. She had been there that night. She had been the one who carried them out of danger. She prayed silently that Mr. Maduka would not yet see what she saw so clearly. The memory came back to Grace with the strength of a storm. The year was 12 years ago. The rain poured heavily over Ikeja that evening, hammering rooftops and drenching the streets. In the private ward of a well-known hospital, the staff rushed back and forth, attending to an emergency delivery. A young nurse in her mid-20s, Grace, had just started her shift. She was fresh-faced, hardworking, and eager to prove herself in her profession. That night, she was assigned to assist the labor ward. The patient was Amara Maduka, wife of businessman Chukwuebuka Maduka. Amara was heavily pregnant with triplets, a rare and risky curse. She was beautiful even in pain. Her skin glistened with sweat as she gripped the bed rails, crying out in anguish. Doctors and nurses surrounded her, doing everything possible to save both mother and children. Grace moved quickly, adjusting drips, mopping Amara's forehead, whispering words of encouragement. She admired the woman's courage. Amara had been in labor for hours, her strength fading. At last, amid frantic commands from the doctor, the first cry pierced the room. A tiny boy entered the ward, his voice loud despite his fragile body. Moments later, a second boy followed. Then a little girl, smaller than her brothers, but just as alive. Triplets, the doctor announced with both pride and worry. 3 lives, but we are losing the mother. Amara, exhausted, smiled weakly as she heard the wails of her children. She whispered, "Tell my husband, they are beautiful," before her eyes fluttered closed. Machines beeped frantically. Doctors tried everything, but the bleeding was too much. Within minutes, Amara slipped away. Grace froze as the doctor lowered his head. A heavy silence filled the ward, broken only by the cries of the newborns. 3 babies alive, 1 mother gone. Outside in the waiting area, Chukwuebuka Maduka paced like a man possessed. His younger brother Ikenna stood beside him, his expression unreadable. When the doctor stepped out, face solemn, Maduka rushed forward. "My wife, my babies!" The doctor sighed. "Mr. Maduka, we managed to save the children, but your wife, I am so sorry, she didn't survive." The words hit like a thunderbolt. Maduka staggered, clutching the wall for support. His anguished cry shook the corridor. Staff looked away, unable to watch a man break so openly. Ikenna placed a hand on his brother's shoulder, murmuring, "Bro, be strong." But his eyes glinted with something else, calculation. Later that night, the triplets were moved into the neonatal ward. Small and premature, they rested in incubators, watched closely by nurses. Grace checked on them often. her heart aching for the tiny motherless souls. She whispered softly to them, promising they would be safe. Near midnight, as the world grew quiet, Grace stepped out to fetch supplies. That was when she overheard voices near the side corridor. Ikenna stood with one of the orderlies, his posture tense. He slipped a wad of naira into the man's hand and pressed something small and shiny into his palm, a vial filled with a clear liquid. Make sure they never leave till morning, Ikenna whispered coldly. Grace froze. Her blood ran cold. She clutched the tray in her hands so tightly that her knuckles turned white. The orderly, frightened, stammered, Sir, are you sure? They are just babies. Ikenna's eyes blazed. Do as I say. My brother cannot have heirs. If those children live, everything I've worked for will be wasted. This is your chance to earn. The orderly nodded shakily, pocketing the vial. Grace's heart pounded. She realized with the horror that the plan wasn't just to take the babies away. It was to kill them. 3 innocent children, only hours old, marked for death. She stumbled back, breathless. She had always heard whispers of wealthy families torn apart by greed, but to see it so plainly shook her soul. She knew she had only minutes before the orderly acted. Grace hurried back to the ward. The triplets lay peacefully in their incubators, unaware of the danger hovering over them. Her chest tightened. She couldn't let it happen. Her mind raced. What could she do? She was only a nurse. If she reported Ikenna, would anyone believe her? He was powerful, connected, and already respected as Maduka's younger brother. The hospital management might bury the truth to avoid scandal. Her eyes landed on the small ambulance parked at the rear exit of the hospital. An idea sparked. Risky, dangerous, almost mad, but it was the only way. She whispered to the babies, I won't let him harm you. You will live. Grace moved quickly, pretending to adjust the incubators while actually preparing blankets. She wrapped each tiny baby gently, her hands trembling. She cradled the 2 boys in her arms and balanced the girl against her chest. Her heart pounded as she slipped out through the back corridor, praying no one would see. The orderly with the vial walked past moments later, whistling, unaware of the incubators were empty. Outside, the rain had eased into a drizzle. Grace ran to the ambulance bay. By luck, one of the drivers she trusted, an older man named Musa, was on duty, sipping tea. Musa, she whispered urgently, please, I need your help. These babies must be taken far from here. Their lives are in danger. Musa's eyes widened. Danger? Nurse Grace, are you sure? She nodded fiercely. If they stay here, they will die before sunrise. Please trust me. Musa looked at the tiny faces, then at Grace's desperate eyes. Without another word, he opened the ambulance door. Get in. They drove off into the Lagos night. The whispers squeaking against the windshield, the city lights blurring through the rain. Grace held the babies close, whispering prayers over them. By morning, chaos erupted in the hospital. The incubators were found empty. The orderly claimed he knew nothing, feigning innocence. Ikenna stormed through the wards, furious, demanding answers. When the doctor asked what happened, Ikenna spoke first, his voice dripping with false sorrow. The babies didn't survive the night. He said smoothly, it was too much for them, being premature. I told my brother already. The doctor frowned, confused. But enough, Ikenna snapped. Do you want to break him further? He's already lost his wife. Let him grieve in peace. And just like that, the lie was sealed. In his broken state, Chukwuemeka Maduka accepted his brother's words. He believed he had lost everything, wife and children, all in one night. He never knew the truth. He never knew that 3 tiny lives had been carried away in the rain by a young nurse named Grace, who risked everything to save them. The evening after Grace and the triplets left his mansion, Mr. Chukwuemeka Maduka sat alone on his study. The wallet they had returned lay on his desk, untouched, as though it no longer mattered. His mind was restless. He could not stop seeing their faces, the three bright children standing in his driveway, their voices polite, their eyes alive with innocence. He whispered the word under his breath like a prayer and a curse at the same time. The chances of meeting the triplets the same age as the babies he had lost were too sharp to ignore. Their resemblance struck him deeply. The eldest boy's eyes reminded him of his late wife, Amara. The younger boy had a stubborn chin just like his own. The girl, though, shook him the most. Something in her small smile brought back memories of a baby he had only glimpsed for seconds before grief swallowed everything. He rubbed his temples. Could it be? Could fate be cruel enough to taunt him with a coincidence? Or merciful enough to hand back what he thought was gone? He thought of Grace, the woman who called herself their mother. She had been polite, but there was a tension about her that he couldn't explain. And her face, something about it touched at his memory. But grief had clouded that time in his life so badly that many details blurred. That night, he barely slept. He paced his wide bedroom, staring out at the manicured lawns at his compound. The portrait of Amara and the newborns hung on his wall downstairs, mocking him with memories. He clenched his fist. If those children are mine, I will know. The next morning, he called in a favor. As a wealthy man, he had access to private laboratories and trusted contacts. He ordered a district DNA test, one that would give him results within days. But he needed samples. He replayed their visit in his mind. He remembered Danielle brushing against him when she touched his hand. A strand of her hair had clung to his sleeve. He had pocketed it without thinking. He also recalled shaking hands with the boys. David's fingernail had left a tiny clipping on his palm. Carefully, he collected these and sealed them in a small plastic bags. For his safe, he brought out something he had not touched in over a decade. A small envelope containing a lock of hair wrapped in tissue. It had been given to him by a kind nurse the night his wife died. The nurse said she wanted him to have a keepsake of one of the babies. At the same time, he had cried holding it, then locked it away, unable to bear looking at it. He never imagined that fragile coil of hair would one day become the key to truth. He labeled everything and handed it to a trusted driver with strict instruction. Take this to the lab, no delays. I want it back as soon as they finish. The driver left and Maduka sat in silence, his heart pounding. The next 2 days were agony. He went about his business, attending meetings, signing documents, but his mind was elsewhere. Each time he closed his eyes, he saw the triplet faces. Each time he spoke with business partners, he heard their laughter echo in his head. At night, he dreamed of Amara standing in white, cradling 3 babies and smiling at him before fading away. He woke up drenched in sweat, whispering her name. Finally, on the 3rd evening, his phone buzzed with a call from the lab director. Sir, your results are ready. I suggest you come in person. Maduka's pulse quickened. He drove himself there. When he got there, the director handed him a sealed envelope. He tore it open with trembling hands. His eyes darted across the page. The word blurred for a moment before settling. Probability of paternity, 99.9%. His breath caught. His knees weakened. He sank into a chair, the paper shaking in his grip. They are mine, he whispered. Tears filled his eyes. My children, all this time, alive. The director spoke carefully. The hair from your hair matched the children. It's conclusive. They are your biological offspring. Maduka nodded numbly. Gratitude, anger, and sorrow swelled together inside him. He thought of his brother Ikenna, Rage bubbled up. Rage for the lie, the theft, the 12 stolen years. But stronger than anger was relief. His children were alive, healthy, kind, and under the care of the woman who had raised them. He left the lab with the papers clutched in his hands. For the first time in 12 years, he felt hope. Grace sat in her small apartment later that week, mending Daniel's school uniform by hand. The children were playing a board game in the living room, their laughter filling the air. Life had gone back to its rhythm after the visit to the mansion. But Grace's mind was heavy. She knew Maduka had looked at them strangely. She feared the truth was creeping closer. A knock came at the door. She wiped her hands and went to open it. There was he, Mr. Maduka, his expression firm but not unkind. In his hand, he carried a large envelope. Grace's breath caught. Good evening, sir. Good evening, Grace, he said softly. May I come in? Her heart hammered. She stepped aside. He entered, his eyes sweeping the modest room, then resting on the children. They jumped up excitedly. Good evening, sir, they chorused. Good evening, children, he replied warmly, though his voice trembled with emotion. I'm glad to see you all again. Grace gestured for him to sit. The children returned to their game, but their ears stayed alert. Maduka placed the envelope on the table, his gaze fixed on Grace. I couldn't ignore it. The resemblance, the timing, everything. I needed to know. He pushed the envelope toward her. I did a DNA test. Grace's face drained of color. Her fingers trembled as she opened the envelope. The scientific report stared back at her. She knew what it meant before she could even read the numbers. They are mine, Maduka said, his voice breaking. Grace, they are my children. The babies I was told died. The children froze, their game forgotten. They turned to stare at him, then at their mother. Grace's eyes filled with tears. She could no longer hide. Her hand shook as she gripped the paper. Slowly, she nodded. Yes, it is true. The room grew heavy with silence. The triplets stared, waiting for more. Grace drew in a shaky breath. My dears, there is something I should have told you long ago. I wanted to protect you, but you deserve the truth. She looked at them one by one. David with his serious eye, Daniel with his restless curiosity, Danielle with her gentle face. Her heart ached. 12 years ago, I was a nurse in the hospital where you were born. Your mother, Amara, gave her life bringing you into the world. She didn't survive the delivery. That same night, someone very close to your father wanted to harm you. He gave orders that you should never live to see tomorrow. The children gasped. Danielle clutched her mother's arm. Daniel's mouth fell open. David's brow furrowed. I overheard it, Grace continued, tears sliding down her cheeks. I knew I had to act, so I carried you away and raised you as my own. I told everyone you were mine. I loved you as fiercely as any mother could. But the truth is, her voice cracked, your father is sitting here. He never knew you lived. He was lied to. The children turned slowly towards Maduka. His face glistened with tears. He nodded, his chest heaving. It is true. I thought you were gone. I mourned you every day. I never stopped grieving. And now, here you are. For a long moment, none of them spoke. The children sat frozen, absorbing the weight of the revelation. Then Danielle began to cry softly. So mommy isn't our real mommy? Grace pulled her close, sobbing. I may not have given birth to you, but I am still your mother in every way that matters. Every sleepless night, every meal, every hug, I was there. I love you as if you came from my body. David's lip trembled. He looked at Maduka. And you are our dad? The man in the picture? Yes, Maduka whispered. I am your father. I lost you once. I will never lose you again. Daniel suddenly burst into tears, covering his face. Why didn't we know? All these years. Grace gathered them close. Maduka moved nearer, kneeling so he was level with them. He opened his arms hesitantly. The children looked at each other, then at Grace, then at Maduka. Slowly, almost shyly, they reached out. First, Daniel stepped into his arms, then Daniel and David. Maduka wrapped them tightly, his tears soaking their hair. My children, my precious children, he murmured, his voice breaking. Grace wiped her eyes, watching the scene. Fear that they would reject her melted as she saw Daniel stretch the hand back towards her. Mommy, come too, she whispered. Grace fell into the embrace, and for the first time in 12 years, the family was whole. Mother by love, father by blood, and three children caught between both, yet belonging completely to each. They clung together, tears mingling with laughter, sorrow mixing with joy. Outside, the noisy street of Ikeja carried on, but inside that small flat, time seemed to stop. The small flat in Ikeja that had sheltered Grace and the triplets for 12 years suddenly felt too fragile, too exposed. After the truth was revealed, Maduka insisted it was no longer safe. Maduka could not risk another attempt on the children he had only just regained. At first, Grace resisted. Her entire world had been the modest apartment. Every scratch on the walls, every creaking tile on the floor carried memories of raising the triplets. First steps, first fevers, nights spent singing lullabies when they cried. To abandon it so suddenly made her chest ache. But when she saw the determination in Maduka's eyes and the hope in the triplets' faces, she relented. If it will keep them safe, then we will go, she said softly. The morning of the move was bittersweet. Grace packed their few belongings into small bags. The children helped, folding clothes neatly, though Daniel kept sneaking toys into his backpack. David arranged his book carefully in a carton. Danielle hugged her one teddy bear tightly, refusing to let it out of her sight. Their neighbors, curious and surprised, watched as a sleek SUV parked outside the compound. A chauffeur stepped out to assist. Whispered questions spread quickly. Where are they going? Who owns that car? Is Grace marrying a rich man? Grace ignored the chatter, focusing only on her children. She looked the flat one last time, her hand lingering on the rusty key before handing it back to the landlord. With mixed feelings, she climbed into the vehicle beside her children. As the car pulled away, Danielle pressed her face to the window, waving at the neighbors. Goodbye, she whispered. David looked serious, as though determined not to cry. Daniel, however, grinned from ear to ear. We are moving to a mansion, he shouted excitedly. Grace sighed but smiled faintly. For all her fear, the thought of seeing them happy gave her strength. The car glided smoothly into Ikeja GRA, where mansions sat behind high walls adorned with flowers and ornate gates. The streets were wide and quiet, shaded by trees. When they turned into Maduka's compound, the children gasped. The gate swung open, revealing the sprawling house with its tall pillars, manicured lawns, and sparkling fountain. Birds chirped in the garden, and gardeners trimmed hedges neatly. When they got in, each child was shown to a bedroom. Danielle's room had lilac walls, a small study desk, and a bed covered in soft sheets. She hugged her teddy bear and whispered, This is mine. Yes, Maduka replied gently, all yours. Her eyes filled with happy tears. Daniel's room was decorated in bold blue, with posters of cars and space rockets already pinned up by the staff to make him feel at home. He bounced on the bed shouting, This is the best day ever! David's room was quiet and tidy, with shelves for books and a view of the garden. He ran his fingers along the spines of novels already waiting for him, his lips curved into a small red smile. Grace was given a guest suite near the children's room. It was elegant, far beyond anything she had ever lived in. She sat on the edge of the white bed, running her fingers over the silky sheets, her chest heavy with emotion. In the days that followed, the triplets adjusted quickly. They explored the mansion with endless curiosity, running down hallways, peeking into the rooms, chasing each other in the garden. They swam in the pool under supervision, played board games in the lounge, and marveled at the endless supply of books, toys, and food. Despite the abundance, they remained humble. Grace's teaching held strong. They thanked the staff politely, shared their meals, and reminded each other not to waste. Even the guards smiled when the children greeted them cheerfully each morning. David spent hours in the library, devouring books. Danielle loved the garden, where she watered flowers with the gardeners. Daniel discovered the game room and spent afternoons trying out everything with excitement. For the first time, they lived without the constant worry of unpaid rent or scarce meals. Their laughter grew freer, their eyes brighter. Yet for Grace, the adjustment was not as simple. At night, lying in the luxurious bed, she felt restless. The silence of the mansion was too different from the noisy compound where neighbors argued and children played outside. Here, every sound echoed. She sometimes longed for the familiar creak of her old wooden door. She worried constantly. Would this new life spoil her children? Would they forget the values she had worked so hard to instill? Would they see her as less important now that their wealthy father had returned? She also felt out of place among the maids and guards who treated her with deference. She was used to being independent, doing everything with her own hands. Now, someone else offered to wash her clothes, cook her meals, and clean her room. She felt uncomfortable, though grateful. But whenever fear gripped her, she reminded herself, I am here to protect them. Their safety comes first. That thought gave her courage. Maduka noticed her unease. He saw how she often withdrew when the staff fussed over her, how her eyes clouded when the children marveled at luxuries. One evening, he found her in the garden, standing alone under the stars. You are not happy here, he said gently. Grace shook her head. It's not that. It feels strange. I raised them in a different world. This life is too big for me. Maduka's voice softened. You saved them when I could not. You gave them 12 years of love. Do not think you don't belong. Without you, I would have nothing. This house would still be empty. Her eyes filled with tears. She looked away, unsure how to respond. Over time, their conversations grew longer. They spoke of the past, of Amara, of the children's future. The bitterness of lost years lingered, but slowly, trust began to rebuild. Grace saw the sincerity in his eyes, his devotion to the children. Maduka in turn admired her courage and resilience. A spark of affection began to glow quietly between them, not rushed, not spoken, but real. As the triplets slept peacefully in their new rooms, Grace checked on each of them, tucking the sheets around their shoulders. She whispered prayers over them, thanking God for their safety. When she stepped into the corridor, she found Maduka waiting, leaning against the wall. Their eyes met, neither spoke, but the silence between them carried understanding. For the first time, Grace allowed herself a small smile in his presence. Maduka returned it, his heart lighter than it had been in years. And so, within the walls of the mansion, a broken family began to knit itself back together, slowly, carefully, but with hope. For weeks after Grace and the triplets moved into the mansion, peace seemed to settle over the family. The children were thriving in their new environment. Maduka was more alive than he had been in years, and Grace slowly began to feel safe. But shadows never stayed hidden forever. Far away in another part of Lagos, Ikenna Maduka sat in his office, pouring himself a glass of whiskey. His eyes scanned a newspaper headline: Maduka heirs found alive. The article was vague, filled with speculation, but it was enough to send his heart racing with fury. He crushed the paper in his fist, whiskey spilling across the table. So the brat survived, he muttered. That nurse, she tricked me. The thought of the children living, thriving, while he had built his empire on lies, filled him with venom. If the truth came out, everything he had stolen over the years would collapse. His investment, his reputations, his power, they would all crumble. That night, Grace received a comfort from an unknown number. She hesitated before answering. A cold voice slithered through the line. You should have stayed in that small flat, woman. You think hiding in a mansion will save you? Remember, accidents happens every day in Lagos. Children get lost. Mothers disappear. Be careful. Her heart dropped. She recognized the voice immediately. Ikenna. She gripped the phone tightly. Leave us alone. But the line went dead. Her knees weakened. She clutched the table for support, her body trembling. Fear threatened to overwhelm her, but she steadied herself. She couldn't show the children any sign of danger. That evening, she told Maduka. His face darkened with rage. Maduka paced his study like a lion in a cage. For 12 years, I trusted my brother. I trusted that man. And all along he lied to me, stole my children's lives, and now dares to threaten them again. Grace placed a hand on his arm. He won't stop until he is exposed. Maduka's jaw tightened. Then I will expose him. He made calls through the night, speaking to lawyers, trusted police officers, and contacts at the EFCC. Quiet investigations had already been underway into Ikenna's shady business dealings, fraud, tax evasion, and laundering money through ghost companies. Now, with the attempted murder of 3 children added to the list, the case against him grew deadly serious. But Maduka knew men like Ikenna. He wouldn't confess easily. He needed proof, undeniable evidence. A week later, Maduka invited Ikenna to a quiet restaurant in Ikeja, choosing a private room away from praying eyes. Grace begged him not to go, but he assured her it was necessary. I need him to speak. Once I have his words, he is finished. He wore a small recording device pinned inside his suit pocket, hidden beneath the fabric. When Ikenna arrived, his arrogance filled the room before he even sat down. He wore a sharp suit, gold rings glittering on his fingers, and a smile tugging at his lips. Brother, he drawled, pouring himself a drink from the bottle on the table. It's been a long time since we sat together like this. Maduka's eyes were cold. Cut the cord, Ikenna. You threatened Grace. You dared to speak about harming my children again. Ikenna leaned back, chuckling. Your children? Those brats should have been gone the night they were born. I gave clear instructions. That nurse ruined everything. Maduka's hands tightened into fists beneath the table, but he kept his face calm. So you admit it. You planned to kill them. Ikenna shrugged carelessly, sipping his drink. Of course. Do you think I would let you raise heirs while I stood in your shadow? No, brother. Without children, you were broken, easy to control. That was the plan. And guess what? It worked until now. The words were clear, sharp, dripping with pride. The recorder caught every syllable. Maduka's chest burned with anger, but he leaned closer, his voice low. You are finished, Ikenna. The police are already watching you. EFCC has a file thicker than a Bible with your name on it. And now, I have your confession. For the first time, Ikena's mic faltered. You wouldn't dare. Maduka stood slowly, his chair scraping back. Watch me. That night, Maduka returned to the mansion. Grace was waiting anxiously by the window. When she saw him stepped out of the car unharmed, she rushed forward. Did he? Maduka nodded grimly. He confessed everything. I recorded it. Relief and fear washed over her at the same time. What happens now? He looked at her steadily. Now, the law takes him. The following morning, Maduka handed the recording to investigators, along with financial records, testimonies from former employees, and the long trial of fraud already traced to Ikenna. The case became airtight. The police commissioner himself called Maduka. We have enough to move. EFCC and our men will act together. Your brother is about to face justice. Maduka hung up the phone, staring out the windows of his mansion. The children were playing in the garden, their laughter floating into the room. Grace stood nearby, watching them with quiet strength. For the first time in years, Maduka felt certain. The nightmare was about to end. Morning broke over Lagos with the usual mix of noise and rush. Hawkers filled the roads. Buses honked impatiently, and workers hurried towards offices. But in one corner of Ikeja, a different kind of movement was underway. Unmarked police vans and EFCC vehicles quietly took position around Ikenna Maduka's luxurious residence. Inside one of the vans, plainclothes officers checked their radios. The commander gave a brief nod. Today, the fox enters the cage. Be sharp. He must not escape. The order went out. Arrest Ikenna on charges of fraud, corruption, and attempted murder. Ikenna was in his study, sipping coffee. When the knock came, he frowned, irritation flashing across his face. Who dares disturb me this early? When he opened the door, stern-faced EFCC operative stepped forward, badges raised. Mr. Ikenna Maduka, one of them declared, you are under arrest. You are charged with fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy to commit murder. You must come with us. For a moment, shock flickered in his eyes. Then his arrogance returned. He barked a laugh. Do you fools know who I am? I am untouchable. You can't just walk into my house. An officer stepped forward to cuff him. That was when Ikenna's mask cracked. He shoved the man back, pulled a pistol from under his robe, and fired a shot into the ceiling. Screams echoed through the compound as guards and staff scattered. Chaos erupted. Ikenna dashed to the garage, leaped into a black SUV, and slammed the accelerator. Tires screeched against the pavement as the gate burst open. Police vehicles roared after him, sirens wailing. The chase tore through the streets of Ikeja. Pedestrians jumped aside as the convoy thundered past. Ikenna swerved recklessly, nearly hitting market stalls, his face twisted with desperation. In the lead pursuit car, the commander shouted into his radio, block the road ahead. Don't let him reach the highway. Traffic scattered as the chase grew wider. Buses tilted dangerously to avoid collision. Vendors abandoned their markets, and bystanders screamed as cars halted past. Ikenna's hands gripped the wheel tightly. Sweat poured down his face. I will not be caged, he snarled. At Maryland Junction, officers tried to cut him off with two vans. Ikenna swerved hard, losing control. His car skided, smashed into a median, and flipped violently. Metal screamed against asphalt as the vehicle rolled, glass shattering across the road. When the wreck finally came to rest, smoke poured from the hood. Crowds gathered at a distance, murmuring in fear. Officers surrounded the wreck cautiously, weapons drawn. Step out with your hands on your head right now, one of them shouted. For a moment, silence. Then the mangled driver's door burst open. Ikenna crawled out, blood streaking his face, clothes torn. His pistol had been lost in the crash, but in his shaking hand, he clutched a jagged shard of glass. His eyes blazed with madness. You will not take me alive, he screamed, staggering to his feet. He lunged at the nearest officer, slashing wildly. The man jumped back, narrowly avoiding the blade. Another officer shouted, Drop it, Ikenna, it is over. But Ikenna charged again, the shard glinting in the sun. A shot rang out. The glass fell from his hand. His body stiffened, then collapsed onto the floor. Blood spread beneath him. The crowd gasped. Officers lowered their weapons, breathing heavily. The chase was over. Back at the mansion, Grace and the children waited anxiously. News of the chase had spread quickly across Ikeja. Helicopters buzzed overhead. Radio stations reported updates. And the neighbors whispered about the Billionaire's disgraced brother fleeing the law. When Maduka finally returned, his face was heavy with sorrow. The triplets rushed to him. Daddy, what happened? Did they catch him? He nodded slowly. It is finished. He won't hurt you anymore. Grace searched his eyes. He is gone, isn't he? Maduka swallowed hard. Yes, he died during the arrest. Silence filled the room. The children clung to Grace, wide-eyed. They were too young to understand the full weight of betrayal and loss, but they felt the gravity in their father's voice. Maduka sat down heavily, his shoulders sagging. For all his anger, Ikenna had been his brother, his blood. Memories of childhood flashed. Games played in their village, meals shared at their mother's table, laughter long before greed poisoned everything. He buried his face in his hands. I lost him to his own choices. Greed destroyed him. But at least my family is safe. Grace placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. You did what you had to do. The children are alive because you stood firm. He looked up at her, eyes glistening. It still hurts, but yes, they are safe. That is all that matters. That night, as the children slept peacefully in their rooms, Maduka stood by the window of his study. The city lights of Lagos twinkled in the distance, the hum of traffic rising from below. He thought of his late wife, of the years stolen from him, and of the brother who had chosen darkness over love. He closed his eyes, whispering into the quiet night, It is over, Amara. They are safe. I will protect them. I promise. Though grief weighed on him, relief washed over him too. At last, the shadow of Ikenna was gone. The storm of fear, betrayal and grief had finally passed. With Ikenna gone, the dark shadow that had followed Grace, Maduka and the triplets lifted at last. For the first time in 12 years, the mansion in Ikeja felt like what it was always meant to be. A home filled with laughter, peace and love. Weeks passed. The children settled into their new routine with surprising ease. They now attended one of the best schools in Lagos. The driver takes them to school every morning, their uniform pressed and shoes polished. Yet, despite the sudden comfort, they never lost the humility Grace had instilled in them. David excelled in his studies, quickly becoming one of the top students in mathematics and literature. Teachers praised his focus and quiet strength. Daniel, once restless, poured his energy into sports, winning medals in track and football. Danielle, the gentle soul, discovered her love for art, painting vivid pictures that soon lined the walls of the mansion. Grace watched them grow, her heart swelling with pride. For years, she had feared they might never have opportunity beyond survival. Yet here they were, thriving. Maduka threw himself into fatherhood with passion. He attended school events, cheered loudly at Daniel's matches, and clapped proudly at Daniel's art exhibition. Every evening, he sat with David to discuss books, encouraging his taste for knowledge. He had lost 12 years, but he vowed never to miss another moment. Grace herself was changing. Slowly, the unease she felt living in luxury began to fade away. She no longer saw herself as a visitor in the mansion. Instead, she took ownership of her role as the anchor of the family. She decorated corners of the house with personal touches, a vase of fresh flowers, curtains she chose herself, and framed photographs of the children smiling. She even joined Maduka at charity events, her gentle presence winning hearts wherever she went. Still, at night, when the house grew quiet, she often knelt by her bed, whispering prayers of gratitude. She thanked God for saving the triplets all those years ago, for giving her courage, and for bringing everything full circle. One Saturday evening, the children gathered in the garden. The air was cool, scented with blooming hibiscus and frangipani. The triplets ran about, chasing each other between the trimmed hedges, while Grace sat beneath a canopy, enjoying the laughter. Maduka stood watching, his chest swelling with emotion. He thought of Amara, the wife he had lost, and how life had brought him back the love in an unexpected way. Grace had not only saved his children, but had given him a reason to live again. He turned to her, his voice soft but steady. "Grace." She looked up, smiling gently. "Yes?" He took a deep breath. "For years, I believed my life had ended with Amara, but you showed me it was only beginning. You gave me back my children. You gave me peace. And you gave me love I thought I would never feel again." Grace's eyes widened, her heart racing. Before she could speak, he sank to one knee on the soft grass. The triplets froze mid-game, staring in surprise. Maduka pulled a small box from his pocket and opened it, revealing a simple but elegant ring. His voice carried through the garden. "Grace, will you marry me?" The children gasped, their faces lightening up. Daniel squealed, "Mommy, say yes!" Daniel bounced up and down. "Please, Mom, say yes." David, ever serious, adjusted his glasses, but his eyes shone. "It is the right thing, Mom. He loves you." Grace's hand trembled as tears spilled down her cheeks. She looked at the man kneeling before her, the children's eager faces behind him, and the life they had built together. Slowly, she nodded. "Yes, yes, I will marry you." The children cheered and threw themselves around their parents in a group hug. Maduka slipped the ring onto her finger. His own eyes glistened with joy. News spread quickly. The mansion buzzed with excitement as preparation began for a wedding unlike any other. Maduka wanted the ceremony to be intimate yet meaningful. A union of two lives that had endured hardship and found redemption. Grace chose a gown of simple elegance, white lace with soft embroidery. She wanted nothing extravagant, only something that reflected her heart. The garden was transformed into a paradise. Strings of light twinkled between trees. Tables were set with flowers and a canopy was raised where the vows would be exchanged. Guests arrived from both Lagos high society and Grace's humble circle of neighbors and colleagues. All were eager to witness a love story that had defied tragedy. The triplets each had a role. David read a poem, Daniel carried the rings, and Danielle scattered petals along the aisle. They glowed with pride, knowing this day was not just about their parents, but about the family as a whole. The evening sky turned golden as the ceremony began. Drums played softly, blending with violins to create a melody that carried both Igbo and Lagos flavors. Women in colorful wrappers sang gently as Grace walked down the aisle, her veil floating above her like mist. Maduka waited at the altar, his heart pounding as he watched her approach. When she reached him, he took her hand, whispering, "You are my miracle." The officiant spoke of love, sacrifice, and the power of honesty. He reminded the guests that true family is not only about blood, but about courage and choice. When the time came, Maduka's voice rang clear. I vow to cherish you, to honor the sacrifices you made, and to love you with all that I am. Grace's reply trembled with emotion. I vow to stand by you, to protect the children we share, and to walk with you in truth and peace. Tears erupted when they exchanged rings. The officiant declared them husband and wife, and as they sealed their vows with a kiss, the triplets leaped forward, hugging them tightly. Guests clapped, saluted, and danced. The garden came alive with joy. After the vows, the celebration began. Long tables overflowed with food: jollof rice, pepper soup, roasted fish, plantain, and steaming bowls of soups. Drinks flowed, laughter rang out, and dancers twirled in colorful attire. The triplets joined the musicians, clapping and laughing. Daniel even tried drumming, earning cheers from the crowd. Danielle danced gracefully with her father, while David shared a quiet moment with Grace, holding her hand proudly. As night deepened, fireworks burst above the garden, painting the sky with light. Grace leaned against Maduka, her heart full. For the first time since that terrifying night in the hospital, she felt completely safe. When the guests departed and silence returned, the family remained in the garden under the stars. Maduka whispered, we have walked through fire, but we stand together now. Nothing can break us. Grace smiled, tears of gratitude shining in her eyes. This is the family I dreamed of, not perfect, but whole. The children gathered around, hugging them both. And so the story closed, not with tragedy, but with unity. A billionaire, a nurse, and three children once marked for death, now bound by love, stronger than fate. Their journey was proof that even when life strips away everything, courage can rebuild, honesty can open doors, love can heal the deepest wounds. The garden light glowed softly as the family sat together, laughter mingling with the night breeze. It was the beginning of a new chapter, a family restored, destiny rewritten. And with that, my dear friends, our story comes to a close. But remember, the magic of storytelling lives on, waiting to whisk us away on new adventures where the wonders of imagination know no bounds. Goodbye for now, and may your dreams be filled with joy, wonder, and endless possibility. Thank you so much for watching. Please kindly comment, like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more interesting stories.